Their inflexibility just didn't sit right with me, especially as someone who had just gone through such a huge change. So reluctantly, very reluctantly, I started asking questions and participating and things. And I genuinely tried. And it was fun. Our team did so well, and it felt amazing being an active reason why we did. Let me tell you, there is nothing more satisfying than doing well in subjects you know you're terrible in, like calculus. So my one big decision of moving schools led to me finding a new interest, turning that interest into something amazing, and of course, finding a new friend group. And even if our team didn't win this year, change and adaptability has given me the drive to succeed next year. I've never been more motivated in my life. I'm sure you guys can tell by now, but this speech is really just a huge love letter to the quality of being adaptable. This love letter doesn't negate the fact that change is scary, and of course, not all change is good. Too much adaptability can be dangerous. I'll give the example of moving schools again. Moving once to better your opportunity is one thing, but there are students out there who have to move once every few months, or maybe even more. This is objectively not a good thing. These students often find themselves falling behind academically, and they struggle to form social connections. I know a lot about this because my family and I researched thoroughly when we were deciding on whether or not I should move. So this, sorry guys, I'm like running out of blank. Give me 1 second. So while I embrace the quality, sorry guys, while I embrace the quality of being adaptable, there's still that lingering thought of staying strong. A willow bends with the wind, but it still has the dexterity to remain upright. There's also that lingering fear that change means starting all over again or falling behind. If you switch majors, it might mean having to take double the classes just to catch up. If you move, it might mean having to learn new street names or finding new good places to eat, which is really hard. And if you find a new job, let's say, you might have to start from the bottom all over again, even if you held a senior position at your old job. And that might all be true. You might suddenly have to deal with a much steeper learning curve than anyone ever wants. But these issues are all short term. I would fail to see the benefits of switching majors, of moving, of finding a new job, because I never looked at the big picture. I was so afraid of it. I didn't want to abandon my old friends, my old teachers, and I didn't want to deal with new students who didn't like me or new teachers that ignored me. I didn't want to go from one boiling pot to another. But finding a new major might mean not having to slog through uninteresting jobs for the rest of your life. Finding new housing might mean better education, better job opportunities, better housing, or maybe all three. Finding a new job might mean you don't have to deal with your abusive boss all day, or maybe it means you can expand your resume. I moved, and it was the best decision of my life. I've never been less stressed, and I'm smelling the roses, and I don't have to deal with sitting in my room and studying chemistry all day. And change doesn't mean, change, I'm not talking about change that you can't control, like, surviving a tsunami or dealing with a house fire. That's a different kind of change I really wish I had the time to talk about. I'm talking about active change. Now, it's not really a term you can Google. It is just something I came up with after watching a bunch of motivational speeches while preparing for this. But I do think it's important to know. To me, active change means evaluating where you are right now, determining whether things are going good or not, and realizing that If you want things to go better, you might want to switch things up. I could do a self-evaluation and see that nothing really needs changing. But the act of self-evaluation helps prepare for acceptance. So even if you are scared, even if you're not sure if cutting your hair or moving or changing classes or talking to your boyfriend is really actually beneficial to your life, isn't it a disservice to yourself to not try? Because it's in our genetics to adapt. So you can survive with that sad boring bob. You can live. But a pixie cut reinvents you. It invigorates you. It makes you happy. So go out, adapt, secure your happiness, and get that pixie cut.
These are lifelong realizations. And isn't it so brave that they're able to stand here and share something from the bottom of their heart? They're not experienced speakers, but trust me, they're very close to being one. So this was really refreshing. Thank you, Isha, so much. And yes, she surely made us think and even made us laugh a little bit while exploring her deep realizations. Our next speaker, Jacob Thomas. Jacob is a high school sophomore who is passionate about political and entrepreneurial issues. He thrives on new experiences like traveling the world, the excitement of Formula One race. Since attending UPenn's Wharton School of Business, Jacob has been working on fresh entrepreneurial ideas of impact. However, one of his most impressive passions is his work in technical theater. Combining creative problem solving and composure under pressure, Jacob has proved that sometimes the most insightful creators do not just speak on the stage, they also build it. So let's give him a round of applause.
Success is overrated. It tells a story of triumph, of talent, of effortless winning. But what it doesn't tell is what came before. The rejection letters, the lost games, the sleepless nights, wondering if it's all a mistake. Robert F. Kennedy once said, only those who dare fail greatly can ever achieve. Yet we still treat failure like a curse, instead of what it really is, the raw material of every success story. I want to talk about failure today, not as an ending, but as the real beginning. We all hear this word, whether it's failure in school, in sports, or in life. It's that label we slap on ourselves when things don't go our way. But what if I told you that failure as we know it doesn't exist? It's not a weight holding us down, but rather a perspective we can shift. It's not the end, it's just a lesson leading to success. Take Henry Ford, one of the biggest names in the automobile industry, and creator of the assembly. But before that, he encountered multiple hardships and faced many obstacles. His first group of investors' money, he used it up without producing a single car. First company, bankrupt. Even his political ambitions ended in defeat. But Ford didn't let this stop. He continued to work and used these failures as lessons. And now he's one of the biggest things. He said, failure is simply the opportunity to try again, only this time more intelligent. And he wasn't alone with these thoughts. The Wright brothers, their first planes crashed. J.K. Rowling rejected time and time again. Even Walt Disney was fired from one of his jobs for lacking imagination. These people didn't let these failures stop. They used it, and now they're some of the most well-known people in the world. But this idea isn't just for famous innovators and entrepreneurs. This is for everyone. Personally, I learned this lesson through Boy Scouts. Since 6th grade, I worked my way up the leadership ranks, building confidence with every step. Eventually, it came time where I was able to run for senior patrol, the higher position in the troop. I was prepared, I was confident, and even had a scoutmaster once tell me that I would make a great leader. Then came election. I gave my speech, the votes were cast, and the results were in. I had lost. It was a crushing moment. It felt like all my work led to nothing. I even started to distance myself from scouting after that, convincing myself that all my work had led me to a dead end. But life is a way of proving us wrong sometimes. Months later, I decided to sign up for a backpacking trip that would happen this time of summer. Not only did I sign up, but I was chosen as one of the 2 crew leaders. Getting this opportunity in some way reignited my passion, and soon enough, I was back at meetings engaged and involved. Looking back, I realized the loss of that election wasn't really a failure. It was simply just a redirection into a different path. Just because I lost doesn't mean it was the end. I was just simply given another opportunity at something else. Maybe being SPL wasn't the right path for me, and now this is. So one thing, it's so easy to fixate our mindset on winning all the time and getting everything right the first try. But the truth is, success isn't about perfection. It's about perseverance and resilience. We just have to be able to change our perspective on it. Take the Leaning Tower of Pisa. In architectural terms, it's a failure. But do we see it that way? No. We see it as an iconic landmark. Why? Because of how we perceive it. This mindset is also crucial for sports. Take Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time Formula One world champion. In 2021, he was on the brink of making history with a record-breaking 8th world title, only to lose in a climactic season-finishing race. It was a crushing moment for him and millions of his fans. But he didn't let this loss define him. He didn't see it as a failure. And so in the next seasons to come, he continued to race, continued to push, and continued to prove why he's still one of the greatest. So how do we shift our mindset when it comes to failure? I want to use an example of something I love, cars. So let's think of shifting our mindset like shifting a 6-speed car, with each gear representing an idea of what we need to redefine failure as well. So we're in the car, we take it out of neutral and put it in first gear. Gear 1, failure is a learning opportunity. We have to see every obstacle and every failure as a lesson instead of an endpoint. In that way, we can learn from it and grow from it with every step we take. Okay, we've hit the 3,000 RPM mark. Let's shift to gear 2. Gear 2, failure is subjective. Just because someone else sees something as a failure doesn't mean we have. As long as we can see our own challenges as growth points instead of roadblocks, we can be in control of our lives. Now that we're at a more street level cruising speed, let's shift to gear 3. Gear 3, process over outcome. Results take time. Things won't always go right very first moment you try. We just need to have patience and understand that in the end, things will work out. We need to trust the process. So let's pick up some speed and let's go to gear 4. Gear 4, failure builds resilience. Every time we get a challenge and we get over it, it makes us stronger for what comes next. That's why it's so important to be able to get over each failure and not see it as an end, but move past it. That way we'll be stronger for whatever can come, whatever can happen next. Okay, I think we're ready for the high one, so let's go to gear 5. Gear 5, failure drives innovation. Every major breakthrough in history has come from some sort of failure. Failure that led to something great. We need to see our own failures as something that can lead to something great, something that can lead to a major breakthrough. In that way, we can stop all those negative thoughts and only focus on the positive. Time for the final loop, the final shift. We're moving past all the slow cars, and now we're hitting that last loop. We have to build upon the idea that failure must be redefined as growth. Without that idea, we won't be able to change our ways and we'll still be stuck and we won't be able to grow. We have to shift our minds. In the end, only 2 things are really in our control, our effort and our acts. If we can give 100% in both, we can live without regret. We have to just understand that failure is not an end. It's simply a pivot, an opportunity, a lesson. So people think that the only obstacle to success is failure, but that's not it. The real obstacle to success is the fear of failure, the fear that stops people from even trying. But in reality, the only failure is not trying out. So let's stop fearing failure and instead see it for what it really is: a lesson, an opportunity, a next step. So now that failure is not an end. It's simply just a moment on our journey to success. Thank you.
How many of us actually sat down and thought about lack of success being actually never trying? We always think of it as trying and not succeeding. So these are very insightful realizations. Each and every one of them today will baffle you with the depth of these realizations, and they will stay for life. And this is why this matters so much. it's not, again, about just finding your voice, it's about using your voice. But speaking their truths today will empower them tremendously, and I believe in that deeply. Our next speaker, Varun Gundamraju. Varun is a problem solver, and he identifies his superpower to be his ability to use logic and solve any problem that he may encounter. Varun is completing a robust research project on utilizing artificial intelligence in computer-aided design. His project investigates whether a machine learning model could be trained to generate CAD models. Varun is an aspiring engineer who plans to utilize his talents in building systems essential to modern engineering to help humanity at large. Let's listen to what he has to share with us today.
One day, there's the bear, right? It's sitting on this tree and it's watching over the land. It notices an eagle that swoops down, catches a hare, and flies on. It thinks to itself, why didn't the hare just run fast? Amused by its cleverness, it realizes it's only too late that there's a shadow above it. And swoosh, a hawk catches it up, and there's it. Now we're all told to not be like this bear. Not too bored, to be driven by success, to keep continuing in our pursuit of our goals. But what is this very pursuit of our goals, this very drive, is the very thing that's done everything else from achieving. We always think that if we had a few more hours in the day, we would be able to if we had that little bit extra time to be able to complete all our goals. But what if taking a step back and taking a new, fresh look at these ideas would help us to solve them? So for me myself, I work on problems quite often. Specifically, I like to program, but I usually run into errors with this. There's one time in particular, I was working on a really difficult problem, and I ran into this point where I just couldn't get past it. Later that day, I was stuck in a traffic jam, and I thought of the solution. However, I didn't have access to my computer or anything to test it out. So when I got home, I decided to try it out, and there you go, the solution worked. But here's the thing, right? It's not just me, it's all the famous minds around that you see. Like, would take an example of Gauss. He's a famous mathematician, arguably one of the greatest. And you guys have probably all heard the tale of how his teacher gave him a task of summing the numbers from 1 to 100. While all of his classmates began to add them manually one by one, he noticed a pattern, adding the first number and the last number, the second number and the second to last number, and so on. He was able to essentially get the same sum each time. Add all those together, and there you go. His teacher was completely blown away by his cleverness. It showed that how boredom can really inspire these unique solutions to existing problems. But let's look at someone maybe to solve more difficult problems. Einstein. Now, he was just a lowly patent clerk when he was pondering some of the greatest ideas that shape our understanding of the universe today. As this patent clerk, he didn't have much to do and was quite often bored. In this free time, he found himself pondering these new ideas and thinking of solutions to them. This gave us a lot of the current science that we have today, and it's pretty much the foundation of a lot of modern science developments. For each of us today, I think what we all need to do is we need to look within ourselves and think about how we can improve. See, boredom shouldn't be seen as this thing that blocks us from getting to where we want to be. It shouldn't be seen as this waste of time. See, science itself tells us that boredom isn't exactly like the end all be all. It's where our brain is. There's more of this default mode. And in this default mode, it's essentially like our brain seeking stimulation, new ideas, new thoughts. And this allows us to come up with new solutions, good solutions to existing problems. Now, in this default mode, our brain is looking for input, and it's thinking of different ways that it can do things. So when it's looking for these different things, it is more likely to think of a solution. So instead of just like spending hour after hour solving a problem by taking that step back, taking some time, you're able to recharge and refocus your energy to solve the problem. Now, a lot of you guys are probably bored of hearing me speak on and on about this, but why don't we take this time to sit, think about the ideas, take a step back, and focus our energy? Thank you.
And you knew very well to do your job too. Do you just think you'll sit here and enjoy the show without any work? Not gonna happen. There's homework for all of us today here. Our next speaker is a high school junior at Wilcox High. Known for her exceptional observational skills, she has a keen ability to notice subtle details. Additionally, she's the founder of the Nomos Project, a nonprofit organization that has spread financial literacy education to over 200 children in the Bay Area. Sindhuja is a talented writer and a blogger, and you can read her latest Medium blog titled The Digital Mirage, Unraveling the Controversy Between Desires and Decisions. Let's welcome Sindhuja Nednod.
What if? It's a simple question, but one that holds so much weight. What if I fail? What if they don't like me? What if I say too much and they think I'm weak? You see, we ask ourselves these what ifs all the time. But here's my proposal to you. What if we flip the question? What if they do like me? What if I don't fail my next AP chemistry test? What if instead of putting up a wall, I allow them to be truly seen? Growing up in the Bay Area, from a very, very young age, all of us are taught to be driven. We're taught to be fearless, the best, the cream of the crop. But under this seemingly nonchalance lies anxiety, burnout, and most importantly, the fear of failure. We live in a world where our success is measured in our GPAs, the number of internships we have, and our college acceptances. We live in a world where showing emotion or the slightest bit of vulnerability is simply a risk that we cannot afford to take. Now, I have some firsthand experience with this. It was my very, very first day of high school, August 13, 2022. Now, coming from a small private middle school, going to a larger mainstream public high school, I left behind pretty much all of my friends. I was so suddenly exposed to new people, new pressures, and new expectations. Now, I have this one distinct memory when I walked into the quad during lunch, trying to figure out how to sit. And in my head, I was thinking, am I trying too hard, or am I not trying enough? Later that day, I was walking through the hallways, and I saw friends already formed, people smiling and laughing at each other. It was like they'd known each other forever. And then there was me. Felt like I didn't belong. Occasionally, if I saw someone I knew, I would smile at them or I would wave. But sometimes my smile felt too wide, too eager. I told myself, just act chill, stay calm, don't let them see you sweat. But inside, I was terrified, and I knew I wasn't the only one. The thing is, we all feel it, that burning desire to be successful, that passion creeping down our backs to belong. But we don't say anything about it. We act like we have it all together, because that's what everyone else seems to be doing. And by doing so, we suppress, we hide our emotions behind a forced smile or blatant sarcasm. We shrink ourselves down into the version that seems the most socially acceptable. You see, this fear of vulnerability, of being judged, comes from something deep inside of us. It's survival. Since the very beginning of time, human beings have relied on each other to live, to thrive, to make it from day to day. And even now, in a world where we don't have to hunt for our food with our bare hands or spears, that instinct continues to live. Rejection feels like a death sentence, so we armor up. We stay in the safety of our own walls because it's safer that way, because nobody knows. But the truth is that the more we hide, the lonelier we feel. Now, I just want to tell you that the thing that we're so afraid of, vulnerability, genuine human connection, is what brought us together in the first place. I don't like to think of it as the survival of the fittest that got us here, but I consider the survival of the friendliest. The idea that human beings can collaborate, support, and help one another is what sets us apart from every other earlier species. And yet, the thing that we're so very afraid of is being real, of being genuine with each other. And that has real consequences. According to the World Health Organization, 1 in 7 adolescents face some mental health disorder before they turn 18. Now that's on a global scale, and I'd like you to think of it nationally. In the United States itself, around 50% of adolescents face some mental health issue or the other before they turn 18. Simply put, the more we bottle our emotions up, the worse it gets. Now, I have some personal experience with this that I would like to share with you all. I stand here on this stage giving you this speech today, but little do you know that I am the biggest overshare. Not the type of person that you make casual conversation with students. Oh no, I'm talking about the person that dumps their entire life story within 5 minutes of meeting someone. And oftentimes, my vulnerability, my emotional state has been met with awkwardness, silence, and rejection. And I would think to myself, maybe I should stay quiet. Maybe it's safer that way. Maybe it's better that way. But today, I can surely tell you that continuing to show my vulnerability has been one of the best decisions I've ever made. Because the more I share, the more I really share, is when I started to attract people that got it. The ones who didn't just disregard my vulnerability, petty scoff, or a subtle nod, but the ones who, after I spoke, took a deep breath and said, "Me too." Genuinely some of the most reassuring words I've ever heard. So what if we stop seeing vulnerability as something to be ashamed of? I want to give you guys another example. Even in art, the most powerful pieces come from a place of raw emotion. I want you guys to think of Vincent van Gogh. I'm sure many of you must have heard of him. He's famous for his painting of the Starry Night, but we also know him as the man who cut off his left ear in frustration and anger. But deep inside, he struggled with loneliness and depression. The one thing that we do know about him, though, is that any emotion he felt, whether it was his anger, sadness, hopes, dreams, aspirations, or despair, he transferred that all to a slate of blank white canvas. Van Gogh and his legacy continue to inspire us as a symbol of genuine human emotion and vulnerability. He is a reminder that no matter how flawed or imperfect we're considered, though we must stand our ground and continue to express how we feel. So what if we didn't continue this? Imagine the weight that would just be lifted off our shoulders. Because here's the truth. Vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is what makes us human. It's what makes us relatable. It's what turns a stranger into a friend and a group into a community. So I want you to take this. The next time that you guys come home from school, your parents pretty much ask you the standard question: how was your day at school? For me, ever since I was in kindergarten, I would always say, boring, fine, or it was good. But try expanding, even if it's just for 5 to 10 seconds. Try saying something other than your standard responses. Because when you choose to be vulnerable, you break the cycle of silence that seems endless. You give other people the permission to do the same, to show how they genuinely feel. Because someone is waiting to break the silence anyway. And why not let that someone be you? I am not saying this is the easiest thing in the world. In fact, it might have been one of the hardest things you guys could have ever done. But here's my challenge to you. Try. I'll leave you with this. The next time you catch yourself asking yourself, what if I fail? What if I embarrass myself? What if things don't turn out okay? I want you to pause, take a deep breath, let go, and re-ask yourself the question, what if everything does turn out okay? Because more often than not, it does. Thank you.
Wow. Let's take a moment to appreciate the courage and the vulnerability we just now witnessed. And thank you, Simbuja, for reminding us that your voices are young, but they carry a lot of wisdom. You know, as I sat down to write these introductions for each one of my students, every time my eyes will fill with tears, then I'll just get emotional. And I thought, I'm gonna put on fake eyelashes today because I cannot be crying in the middle of this. And now I was just debating, listening to her, and as my heart was swelling with pride, I was thinking, forget that lashes, it's all right. It's all about vulnerability anyway. So here we have our next speaker. Wow, you're tall. Okay. Vihan Patel. Vihan is a bold thinker with a gift for turning controversy into conversation. A skilled debater in both public forum and Lincoln Douglas formats, he brings clarity, curiosity, and courage to every discussion. After interviewing with the John Locke Institute, their academic director actually called me personally to share that Vihan has been one of the most intellectually impressive students they've encountered. And you're about to see why.
Group projects, the ultimate test of diplomacy, patience, and working with others. Because that's what collaboration is all about, right? Wrong. Don't get me wrong. I love working with other people, but only when my fellow group members actually do the work with me. We've all been there, staying up the night before everything was due, having to do all the research ourselves. This happened most recently to me in my 8th class, when I was tasked with evaluating the causes of United States intervention in World War II. Unfortunately, I was paired with 2 other group members who almost made it feel like they were determined not to do any work. And while this may sound like a surefire way to ruin someone's weekend, I found the opposite to happen. I dove into a process of iterative research and exposed myself to multiple pieces of rhetoric along the way, which in turn made me question, how did my active research shape my views on intervention writ large? Now, group projects may not be the only way we iteratively research on topics. It's no secret that the way that we research and delve into different political issues obviously has an effect on how we internalize those issues and reinterpret them for ourselves. Put simply, this term is called subjectivity. First coined by the philosopher Rene Descartes, subjectivity purely describes the way of consciously thinking about different issues and social dynamics. Consciousness, or the process of consciously digesting something, is defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary as being based on or influenced by your friends, your family, etc. Now, a great way to explain it is through relations to politics. Your political preference explains your things like your views on healthcare, the economy, origin, etc. But your subjectivity explains why you find those issues important. Why do you care about the economy? And why do you care about the economy more than you care about other issues? I'd like you all to take the time to ask yourselves, what issues do you care about right now? Why do you care about those issues more than you care about other ongoing issues that happen in the status quo? And why don't other people care about those issues as much as you do? You might find yourself answering all of my questions to ideas that have been influenced by your friends, your family, your religious views, etc. But there's one factor that is often overlooked and crucial and may explain why some of you don't know the answer to the question I asked. The answer is in our implicit rhetoric. Think back to the English example. The process of research regarding, for example, intervention in World War was found to fire electrochemical responses in the brain, which in turn shaped neural pathways and physically rewrite the way that we think about politics and the world. An example of this in our everyday lives is news sources. It's no secret that news sources on the left and the right have drastic and sometimes even humorous different interpretations of political affairs. And the issue I'd like to bring up is not the explicit biases those sources have, but the implicit ones. For example, how does your favorite news article frame things like the Ukrainian conflict? Do they frame it like the United States v. Russia or Ukraine v. Russia? These are examples of implicit rhetorical choices that in turn change the way that we see the conflict altogether. The eye-opening moment for me regarding arms subjectivities was regarding nuclear arms. I asked myself, why is the proliferation of nuclear arms immoral? Well, obviously, because if we overproduce too many of them, it increases the chance of an existential risk. It's precisely this justification that exposes what we care about when we determine our subjectivities. Because if you ask an Indigenous American that same question, they can tell you that arm causes radiation in the communities that they live in. It's also at this moment I realize that our subjectivities can be grounded in something that we don't personally care about without us even knowing about it. Take capitalism. Mark Wachowski and Norman Rossi, two political professors, conducted a meta-analysis on subjectivities during times of crisis. They found that subjectivities during times of crisis, we tend to find and view conflicts as certain epistemological limitations to capitalism. Put simply, this is just an example of statistical subjectivities across the population that tend to show us that people view conflicts in their relation to the economy. But why does this phenomenon occur? The answer is through our implicit rhetoric. We're constantly surrounded by different news sources and articles that relate conflicts to the economy and relegate importance to them in the same way. And that internally persuades us to view it in the same manner, when sometimes we don't even care about the economy that much ourselves. This isn't meant to be a normative claim, saying all of your views on politics is based on the economy, but rather implicit rhetorical choices that we are exposed to every day can change the way we think about politics writ large and can be the reason why we think the way we do. And this process can happen without us even knowing. Thus, intuitively, these subjectivities can be negative. What I mean by this is that they are grounded in motivations that we don't personally value or are just born in ignorance. I believe this is what we ought to identify within ourselves to achieve cohesive conclusions regarding politics. It's this unique form of self-reflection that is missing from political conversations all throughout today. For example, we constantly hear questions like, what is your stance on the economy? Are you pro-life, pro-choice? But not questions that ask how or why we achieve those conclusions in the first place. The existence of negative subjectivities is inevitable, but the minimization of those subjectivities is undeniably a good thing. So I would like you all to reflect on the answer to my question. Why do you care about the issues you do? And why don't others care about these issues as much as you do? You might find that your answer was not influenced by your friends and family, but rather the rhetoric you've been exposed to. And you also might find that that exposure has grounded your subjectivities and you've been motivated by something you really don't actually care about. So next time you hear political discussions, don't just ask what somebody believes, but ask why. You might find that the biggest contributor to our opinions isn't our logic, but rather the rhetoric we've been exposed to all along. Thank you.
I tried making him write about simpler things. We explored the family pet. We went through all kinds of other topics. He is passionate about what he's talking about and eventually convinced me that's what his speech is going to be about. And I had to read it many, many times to even comprehend it, let me tell you. All right, do not let age fool you. Arna is a high school junior, but she's already been a powerful podcaster host for the past 5 years, running Arna's Muse, a collection of interviews of brilliant female professionals aiming to encourage her audience of young girls to pursue male-dominated fields. Arna is a budding entrepreneur too, who is currently working to co-lead a team of developers to tackle AI and mental health. Let's hear her today.
One of my special talents in life is the ability to get hopelessly lost in a prospect.
every single time. I walk in with mission, get eggs, and somehow an hour later, I'm transported deep in the jungle of wool and paper towels, wondering if I'll ever see my mother again. But it's not my fault. The management seems to rearrange everything every week like it's some kind of psychological experiment. But here's the thing. When you do get lost in that endless labyrinth of free samples and oversized canned beans, what do? Do you pretend to ask for help? Or do you fake confidence when you're fully meant to end up in the aisle of industrial-sized tubs of peanut butter? Because let's be honest, getting lost, both in real life and in Costco, is inevitable. The real question is, how do you find your way out and not fall back into your comfort zone? Or even better, have you ever gotten your physically order wrong at your local PJs? Heck, if my order physically were swapped for something else, I definitely want the right order, right? So one time, my order didn't go through. I told the waitress about it, and not only did I get my previous order, but I got my order physically on the house, paying only for the price of one, all with the sole power of asking for help. And this brings me to my point. Outside of school or work, when things don't seem to go our way, we take action towards correcting that. However, if you were to bring the same situation to your school cafeteria or workplace, 9 times out of 10, we react by letting us go and keeping to our comfort zone. There's this apparent contrast between fearlessly asking for help in an unfamiliar environment and hesitating in a familiar place, because it goes against our mental routine and makes us feel uncomfortable. And don't get me wrong, there's no problem sticking to what we feel comfortable with. Comfort equals safety, and entering new territory can set off our fight or flight responses. We tend to freeze up and get the usual symptoms of clammy hands, a racing heart, and can't forget dizziness. This anxiety and fear leads us to have a heightened state of alertness and feeling like we're on an edge, where nerves kick in, so bonkers. I mean, has your teacher ever called on you using a spinner wheel or popsicle sticks? Anyone? Well, for me, I have. The moments gearing up to that selection seem so daunting because that is when we are on edge. We tend to get nervous, and all of that anxious and anxiety can lead us to feel on edge, and we fear leaving our comfort zone. But this is not a mere observation. Science explains how our brain perceives new challenges. There are several ways in which the human psyche is designed to feel. Dr. Joseph Ledoux, an American neurologist, has done interesting research, highlights the amygdala, the brain's center of processing emotions, and its planning role for the amygdala, which is its way to process fear and threat detection. What's incredible about his research is that when the amygdala is hot, when entering a new situation, the amygdala triggers fear or anxiety, pushing us to stay within our comfort zone and setting off our fight or flight responses, preparing the body for action. What's incredible about Lee's research is that he has scientifically found out that there are ways to overcome such pathological behaviors by treating fear and rewiring fear to our brains as a means to learn, not as a means to learn. For example, most courageous role models that we've heard of in history have to venture out one way or another out of their comfort zone, right? Well, my role model is Sally, the first American woman to go to space. The reason why she's my role model isn't necessarily because of her accolades, but because she had to brave the storm and show the naysayers that she was equally as capable as a male astronaut. And she did just this, inspiring a generation of girls to pursue science and math, greater focus, and reach the stars. But there's a difference between raising the bar and falling into Howie's perfectionist mindset of setting unrealistically high standards and becoming overly critical of mistakes. We tend to have this analysis paralysis mindset where we think situations are either perfect or a complete failure. Here it is with our fight or flight responses, and that is why our minds are naturally fine-tuned to wanting to stick to what we feel safe with. It's human nature, and it's often idealized by society and framed as security, safety, and stability. However, there is a danger when signals are comfortable about. According to Lucy Green, a strategic coach, perfectionists are always on the push for brainstorming, researching, and planning. But when it comes to finally executing that idea, they fall short. It's the remaining 20% that they fall short on. And why? Because that's the part that actually takes them out of their comfort zone. Think about it like this. If you're interested in playing sport, let's say field hockey, for example. Well, first you find a coach who teaches you how to sit, learn your passes, and get a good grip on your skills. You find a team to play with and learn how to play with other athletes. But all of this hard work would really only boil down to game day, the long-awaited championship. If you were to chicken out and not play on the day, then all that hard work would have been for nothing. It's often that last part, which is often the most challenging, and that's what moves us out of our comfort zone. And Harvard's division of continuing education states this perfectly. High levels of stress inhibit performance. It's a cherry on top of completing the last action and the task at hand, which is often the difficult part, applying what we've been doing ourselves to a real world context. And that is why it's daunting to leave what you feel familiar to. For me, leaving my comfort zone has been difficult, both in school and at home. As a student myself, I remember this absolutely vividly. The second day of my sophomore year AP Calculus AP class last year, when my teacher asked if we had any questions regarding homework, the entire classroom went dead silent. The previous night, I circled maybe 3 to 4 questions to ask because I knew that if I didn't get them out of bed, I wouldn't get it now. It's been built on myself. And so with my heart racing as fast as a cheetah hunting its prey, I asked my first question. The entire classroom turned their heads to look my way and probably judge me, but I figured we come to school to learn, not to worry about being judged. And so I asked my first question, got it answered, and asked some more. In fact, it probably took around 15 minutes of class time, but it didn't matter. And so I kept this momentum going the rest of my sophomore year, and lo and behold, not only did I end both semesters with A+ in the class, but I earned 5 on the AP exam. And to think, if I didn't ask these initial questions in the beginning, I probably would have been too scared later on to ask these questions. And who knows, maybe the questions I asked that day helped clarify some doubts that my peers might have had. But in the end, asking for help and getting out of my comfort zone benefited me the most in the long run. Sticking to our habitual routine and clinging to our comfort zone can limit our potential. I mean, if you were to eat the same burger for lunch every day, you're bound to get bored, right? Why not try a slice of pizza or a bowl of sushi? Your mind and body function the same. There's always room for us to learn and apply that learning to our routine. I mean, how do we even get a routine to start off in the beginning, right? We must eventually somewhere. When we become comfortable, that is when it's time for a change, as we may never discover our true capability or passions if we stick to what we feel familiar to be. I'm going to go back to the seconds. For me, getting out of my comfort zone is difficult, even at home. For my podcast channel, Artist News, I remember my first ever interview with a professional named Mariya, a YouTuber who has now gone viral. I've had this fear ever since I was a kid to only talk to people in my grade, in my class. I would never socialize with people above me and peer below me. Talking to my own teachers seems scary. So you can imagine how terrified I was to have this conversation with such an esteemed professional. Funny to admit it, but my mother had to be in the same room with me, holding my hand the entirety of the 20-minute conversation and recorded the audio on her phone just in case my computers crashed. I had so many precautions held just in case because it was my first time entering these uncharted waters. My nerves were so high that to this day, whenever I tune into episode 14 on my channel, I can still hear my shrill voice, nervous that I'd mess up. And well, that's what we're to today. I've constantly gone out of my comfort zone and challenged myself. Making friends in my FCT room, because I never found it socializing, and signing up for events, even though I was nervous at the present moment, because I knew I'd miss something later down the road, and keeping myself open to new opportunities. All because I was learning to be with someone with much more experience than me, all because I have the willingness to dream big and venture out of my comfort zone. Thank you.
did very well today as well. Good luck to your pursuits, inspiring girls are now. Our next speaker, Shivane Senthilkumaran, is a sophomore at Valley Christian High School. A water polo athlete and a dedicated volunteer for Cake for Kids. But what truly sets him apart is the compassion he brings to everything he does, especially his work with children at the Pine Ridge Reservation. Last summer, Shivane spent time on the reservation to create something lasting. A traveling mini library, games, and personalized goodie bags meant to spark joy in the children. Shivane's work proves that leadership isn't always loud, but it's always deeply felt.
I remember the first time I heard the phrase, "Don't compare apples to oranges." I was puzzled, trying to understand the meaning of such a simple concept, and at the same time wondered how this idiom made the light of day. It seems so simple. Both are fruit, round, juicy, and grow on trees. So why compare? And apparently I was not alone in questioning this statement. Scott Sanford of the NASA Ames Research Center took this a step further. He used infrared spectrometry to compare a Granny Smith apple to a sun-kissed orange and found that the spectra of the two fruits are strikingly similar. But this study, later published, uncovered a much deeper topic rather than the obvious comparison at hand, the topic of symbiosis. But let me take this metaphor further brief today. Take my brother. I would consider myself an extrovert. I'm outgoing and almost always ready to jump into something new. He, on the other hand, is quiet, reserved, and thoughtful. And growing up, this difference frustrated me a lot. I wanted him to speak up, and he probably wished that I would slow down sometimes. But over time, I realized that we actually balance each other out. I remember working on a project. While I'm able to talk, he made sense of the board. And I realized that introverts and extroverts don't just coexist. They complement each other in ways that make both stronger. Much like in life or at school, there's always one person who will take charge, assign roles, and keep everyone on track, while another will quietly refine ideas and ensure accuracy. One thrives in the spotlight, while another quietly works behind the scenes. Now, which is more important? The truth is, neither. While the loud leader might seem like the driving force, without the quiet leaders, the work might be all flash and no substance. And without the leader to bring inside this light, the quiet thinker's work might never even be seen. In 1921, Carl Jung popularized the terms introvert and extrovert as building blocks of personality. Jung, an introvert himself, noted that introverts are drawn to the inner world of thoughts and feelings, whereas extroverts crave the external world of people and activities. Introverts prefer less stimulation, and their energy gets depleted in social situations, whereas extroverts gain energy from social situations. This difference to reactivity to stimulation shapes how they engage with the world. In a world where we separate people into two categories, it may seem like extroverts have the advantage. And when we praise loudness and confidence, the reality is introverts and extroverts don't just coexist, they need each other. And we can see this in some of the world's most powerful partnerships. Take Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Jobs was the extrovert, the charismatic visionary who could sell the product before it was even built. Wozniak was the quiet genius who actually made it happen. Without Jobs, Apple wouldn't have become a global brand. And without Wozniak, there would have been no product to sell in the first place. One without the other, no Apple. Or look at Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks. King was a dynamic speaker, the public force of the civil rights movement. Parks, in contrast, was reserved and soft-spoken, but her quiet act of defiance, refusing to give her seat up, became the spark that ignited a movement. While King's words inspired, Parks' actions proved that change can come from stillness too. Their impact wasn't the result of their similarities, but because of the differences that made them stronger together. At the Pine Ridge Reservation, I remember working with the Lakota children. I was loud and excited, eager to get the children involved in games, trying to create a fun and welcoming environment. While my teammates took a more quiet and observant approach, trying to focus on the technical aspects of teaching and ensuring that the kids felt heard. I quickly realized that although we had different ways of engaging the children, our differences were a strength. My extroverted energy helped bring excitement, while their introverted energy helped the kids feel heard. Together, we created an environment where the kids felt safe, cared for, and valued. I saw this same dynamic in a place with a lot more water. During a crucial water polo game against a rival school, with just 28 seconds left in the clock and the score tied, we found ourselves in a timeout. And a usually quiet teammate of mine had a brilliant idea for a play, one which we called X. But he hesitated to share his idea with the coach. And instead, he decided to whisper his idea into my ear. As the referee blew the whistle and the final seconds began, time slowed down and I decided to call the play. It felt like a risk, but as we executed it, everything fell into place, and that led us to score the winning goal. If my teammate hadn't shared his idea with me, or if I hadn't listened to him, we might have lost that game. And our victory came from a mix of listening to each other, trusting each other, and acting on the spot. Even in nature, we see this balance. Clownfish and sea anemone rely on each other. The clownfish provides food, while the sea anemone provides protection. When you separate them, they struggle, but together they thrive. Introverts and extroverts are the same. Extroverts bring enthusiasm and drive conversations, while introverts bring depth and careful thought. Extroverts take actions quickly, while introverts consider the long-term consequences. And when it comes to communication, extroverts can express their ideas openly, while introverts analyze before they say anything to ensure that their words carry weight. And in relationships, extroverts make tons and tons of connections, while introverts foster meaningful and deep relationships. Rather than viewing extroversion and introversion as opposing forces, we should view them as complementary. And whether in friendships, work environments, or families, this will create a well-rounded and more balanced environment for everyone. If you're an extrovert, value the deep thinkers in your life. And don't underestimate them and look at their silence as emptiness, but as depth. And if you're an introvert, don't underestimate those who pull you into conversations and encourage you to share your voice. Because at the end of the day, success and progress don't come from one personality type overpowering the other, but from the harmony they create together. Yet this idiom about apples to oranges still persists, because as humans, we don't always make connections even when they are obvious. Instead, we compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges, and we mimic our peers, we adopt their views, and we separate people into categories. We just use this idiom of apples to oranges to dismiss the comparisons that we make about them. And even worse, we create invisible divides based off their appearances alone. But as William Beveridge wrote, originality often consists in linking up ideas whose connection was not previously suspected. Our differences are not barriers, they are bridges. And if we learn to embrace them, we create something greater than the sum of our parts. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you very much, Shivani. Our next speaker has been widely working on an idea that challenges what most of us take for granted. Get ready to hear something fresh from Charvi Chirupuri. Charvi is not only a classical dancer and a tennis player, but a dedicated debater. Her speech and debate pursuits have become her voice, an outlet to articulate empowering ideas and advocate for what matters to her. One of Charvi's most recent projects is the start of a nonprofit called Food Sage, born from Charvi's passion to empower individuals and communities with the knowledge to make informed food choices and to combat food mislabeling. Let's hear her out.
Imagine soaring across the Atlantic Ocean on your way to Europe, getting ready to eat your favorite dessert, ramen. Once the flight attendant places the plate, you shove one bite after another, indulging in your sweet treat. All of a sudden, you hear a loud crunch. That seems weird though. The menu didn't say anything about nuts being in brownie. The air hostess had reassured you as well that there were no nuts in your sweet treat. You begin to feel itchy and your throat begins to swell up. This nightmare scenario happened to my sister last summer. This nut-free chocolate brownie was in fact not a brownie at all, but a chocolate-filled nut dessert containing one of the nuts she is severely allergic to. My sister was the victim of what is known as food mislabeling. Food mislabeling is a form of food deception that can either be intentional or negligent. Every year, a significant number of people experience allergic reactions due to food mislabeling. This could be because of an overlooked ingredient, an undeclared allergen, or a careless reassurance, putting their lives at risk. Today, I will showcase common types of mislabeling as well as misbranding of our food. I will also discuss the importance of accurate labeling when it comes to consumer health, safety, and trust. Picture this, walking down a grocery store aisle, picking up products that promise to be natural, organic, healthy, only to find out they are not what they claim to be. It is easy to get swept up in labeling deception. Food can be labeled as all natural but have synthetic preservatives, gluten-free but contain gluten, low fat but have high sodium, and organic but have non-organic ingredients, which is why it is important to watch out. There is no one in this situation who hurts more than us, the consumers, which is why we have to examine this phenomenon closely. Did you know that there is no distinct definition for the word natural, yet numerous products claim to be so, confusing consumers who don't understand? As a result, consumers often have to pay more for such products, even though there might not be any nutritional difference. Dr. Marissa Hall and colleagues conducted a study showing that parents tend to choose beverages with the all-natural claim despite their high sugar for their young children in comparison to beverages with just the all-natural label. When it comes to organic foods, the standards are a bit more strict, but these foods may still not be 100% organic. In some cases, these foods can contain sweeteners that add no nutritional value and only serve to enhance taste. Organic foods do not could contain pesticides, as the organic label does not mean that they are pesticides because there could still be pesticide residue. Imported organic foods may not be as tightly regulated and could still contain heavy metals such as lead, arsenic, and cadmium in the soil and water. Furthermore, companies use sweetened sugar substitutes under the names of agave nectar, fruit juice concentrates, and high fructose corn syrup into deceiving us into thinking that we are making healthy choices. Foods that might be low in calories and high in protein may not be as healthy as you think. For example, low-calorie diet soda contain many harmful ingredients such as phosphoric acid, and foods that are high in protein, such as protein bars, could contain an excessive amount of sugar. Clearly, there are many health, legal, financial, and ethical concerns that arise from these practices or behavior. I can go on and on about how companies are trying to pull the wool over us consumers. But now, let's take a look to see what others have done. Have you ever heard the ad for Nutella? Breakfast never tasted this good. Many of us were pulled in by this catchy ad and deceptive product label, claiming that Nutella was healthy and part of a balanced meal, including a Californian mom of a 4-year-old. When her friends showed her Nutella's high fat and sugar content, this mom sued Ferrero, the owner of Nutella, for deceptive advertising in 2012. She called Nutella the next best thing to a candy bar. None of Ferrero's ads mentioned anything about this high fat and sugar content. Instead, they discussed their quality ingredients, such as hazelnuts, skim milk, and just a hint of cocoa. As a result of this lawsuit, Ferrero had to change its nutrition label, its misleading advertising, and do a $3 million payout. So why is it up to us to decode everything that goes into our bodies? There are so many names for just salt and sugar that we would need a degree in nutrition and chemistry to even understand what is going into our body. But the real question that arises from all of this is how are companies able to orchestrate these crafty behaviors? Regrettably, the mislabeling and misbranding of food across America is more common of an occurrence than we would like to believe. Let's put this in perspective. In just 2024, labeling issues and recalls dominated the industry, costing it a grand total of $1.92 billion. That is billion with a B. So, who are the regulatory agencies? The Food and Drug Administration, known as the FDA, is in charge of almost everything we eat, in addition to drugs, cosmetics, and medical devices. On the other hand, the Department of Agriculture, known as the USDA, is in charge of egg, poultry, and meat products. In December of 2020, the FDA warned Whole Foods Market for selling mislabeled foods that did not declare proper allergens in its label. Keep in mind, this was after a recall of more than 30 products being sold under the Whole Foods brand that did not declare at least one major allergen from the previous year. So how are companies able to orchestrate this? And why are these regulatory agencies not providing proper labeling standards? Are they prioritizing the consumers? When I clicked on the USDA website, I was shocked to find over 2,900 food issues, ranging from food contamination all the way to food not declaring proper allergens. In just 2024, 83% of food issues were because food did not declare proper allergens. This includes Costco's recent recall of 80,000 pounds of Kirkland signature butter for undeclared milk in October of 2024, and chocolate orgain protein powder for undeclared peanuts in December of 2024. You and I both know that allergies as severe as peanuts can result in anaphylaxis, a life-threatening allergic reaction that requires medical attention right away, even when you're soaring across the Atlantic Ocean. Due to the risk that mislabeling poses, do we need stricter laws, bigger fines, and more penalties so that companies aren't driven by profit and actually prioritize the safety of us consumers? Back to being mid-air, 35,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean. We are so fortunate that we were able to figure out my sister was having an allergic reaction to an undeclared nut, but she unknowingly consumed her chocolate dessert. Not everyone is as lucky as my sister was that day, because a fellow passenger and advised medical professional was able to give us the right help at the right time. Serving food should not require information or guarantees from flight attendants. Companies need to start providing truthful labeling. Regulatory agencies need to start doing their job effectively so that we can nourish ourselves properly with the assurance that the food we are eating will not compromise our health or worse, take our life. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Dennis Ziju. Dennis is a student who doesn't just ask how things work. He relentlessly asks why. After completing a winter internship at Harvard focused on artificial intelligence, Dennis has set his sight on the cutting edge of AI and quantum computing. He is driven by intellectual curiosity and a strong conviction to turn ideas into actions. Whether he's preparing for coding competitions or exploring abstract theory, Dennis doesn't stop at the first solution, but finds new paths and creates his own. Dennis represents the kind of mind that will shape the future we're all heading into. Let's hear him out.
I have a confession. It's a heavy secret. It's been weighing on me for quite some time. Helps don't. I know this for a fact because anytime I ask my parents a question, it feels like I can never get an answer. Like this one. I asked my mom what a picture is. I asked her, you sit in the sky. I said, people see a float. Can it also start doing things? It's never good. Right? Why does it keep making those noises? Why doesn't it speak with the weekend? It can be fine. Is it just the moon or even the sun? It's not here. Let's stay and kept on asking till my mom expressed. Hopefully. In retrospect, maybe I just asked too many questions. Regardless, my love for questioning things got me hooked, finding answers for myself and by myself. This meant I would research almost anything ever. This led me to knowing some very random topics, like the exact altitude which the gold is European flag or was the continent. It's 13,000 meters. But as I noticed that my questions became fewer. Instead of examining the world around me, I took it for granted. I stopped asking why and observed. Rather, I became accustomed to just absorb what others decided to perform. So, what happened? When we get older, do we just lose our natural curiosity? Or do we learn to prioritize? To a young child, learning is essentially a requirement to start a big world. It's like doing the tutorial for a game that's like nothing you've ever played before. That's why they devote so much of their energy to being curious. No prior knowledge or experience your life. Their only way forward is to ask them questions with people around them. And as young children, we enjoy it. We bring an impressive amount of energy and resources to the task. Anyone who's played a game of memory against a 4-year-old can attest. Their ability to store and learn information is amazing. However, as we grow older, we put more and more of these little interactions on autopilot. And they just become like their part of their day-to-day life. We begin to cut down unnecessary spendings of energy, right? We make every single processing system as efficient as possible. And all of a sudden, curiosity becomes another fairy tale of a distant child. Imagine this. You're playing a video game. With only a sword and a shield. They're solid. You keep learning level after level, same to others. But not only using these two buttons, you're missing out. Countless environments, experiences, abilities, quests, and even new characters. A bit of living life without curiosity is the same. Sure, you get all taking the straightforward direct path again. Then we do some memories, adventures, experiences, journeys, and lives that could have stood on the side. That's not all of it. Adults can still be forced to re-engage their knowledge acquisition in most history of the past. What, for instance, was an entirely new environment. The parts of here have to interact effectively from scratch. So, this answer wonder the most learning to scuba dive first time. Or for that matter, downhill skiing is a good example. Find wonder and enthusiasm as we deploy all of our energy and resources to negotiate a steep learning curve. In exchange, we gain a new set of experiences. And adults are placed in a situation with no direct knowledge or experience. The only way forward is through curiosity. But we shouldn't only rely on curiosity to be forced. We need to cultivate a naturally curious mindset. A study from the National Library of Medicine found the more we're curious, we tend to learn better. A teacher who made their students curious about a topic more teaching led to students scoring 20% better on tests. Why? Because when you're curious, learning tends to become more natural. You don't have to force yourself to sit down and memorize facts. Rather, you'll naturally feel the urge to fill the holes in your knowledge and find the answers to your unanswered questions. Your cognitive functions improve because when you're curious, your brain begins to release dopamine. This is the same dopamine that's released when you clear a hard look video game or you eat your favorite food. The dopamine acts as an incentivizer, communicating to your brain to continue doing whatever it is that you're doing. One of your brain spend more resources and energy toward being curious, getting boosted dopamine. Wait. There's a common misconception that curiosity is a trait. It's not. Anyone can be curious. You don't have to be born with a billion questions in your head. Curiosity isn't just as simple as asking why. It's going above and beyond the initial question. True curiosity is achieved when you dedicate yourself to a topic. Because anyone can ask a simple question. But to be truly curious is to find the answers to your question. There are two main types of curiosity: specific curiosity and epistemic curiosity. Let me give you an example. Let's suppose you and your friends are talking about you just so you forget what the name of the lead actors. What do you do? Draw your phone, quickly search it. That specific curiosity. It's essentially the urge to know really specific detail. On the other hand, epistemic curiosity, more closely defined as wanting deeper, broader understanding of the concept you're talking about. For example, I was in college. I was fascinated by how people had found countless ways to solve a puzzle that to me seemed so complex and impossible. After a stroke of inspiration, I bought my first cube ball and I watched a YouTube tutorial to solve it for the first time. That solve took me a whole day. But every day after, I learned more and more, and I found the most efficient way to solve a cube. Eventually, I found my time just 1 minute. Employing curiosity to learning something new is the best way to become more well-versed in the concept you're taught. Because you motivate your mind to start spending more resources and energy to learn more. Malcolm Gladwell once famously said, it takes 10,000 hours to obtain mastery of a skill. And it's curiosity that sparks the first hour and keeps you dedicated until the last. Think about everything you've done, every fact, skill, every relationship you got is that something you were curious enough to explore. Now imagine where you'll be here from. You keep that curiosity. All the places, all the people, all the skills you have, all curiosity. So leave some room for curiosity. Thank you.
Dennis, curiosity killed the cat, thought the dog. We are almost at the end. And here I have our next and last presenter, Nidhi Yalamraju. Nidhi's superpower is her advocacy through mock trials as the defense attorney. She believes that mock trial is her superpower because she's an excellent advocate for her clients. She thinks fast on her feet, and she can be very persuasive. Nidhi loves to learn about the law and how it affects our society. So let's welcome the future United States Attorney General, Nidhi Yalamraju.
It all started with one simple dress.
We all woke up one morning in 2015 to discover a low-quality image of a striped dress with the caption, "What color is this dress?" Social media, news stations, and workplaces were buzzing. Over 78 million people had viewed the post, and the answers range from "I see blue and white" to "No, it's obviously white and yellow" to "I think I'm just losing my mind." No one seemed to agree. How is it that one simple dress divided the world? Was the dress blue and black, or was it white and gold? It all comes down to perspective. A color can look completely different depending on shades, colors, and things around it. What seems obvious to one person might look completely different to another. Light vision starts in our eyes, but first mostly in our brains. Light enters through the retina, where it's translated into electrical signals that are then sent to the brain's visual cortex. But here's the thing. Our brains don't just receive information, they create our reality based on context and experiences. The dress wasn't just blue and black or white and gold. It's shaped by perspective. Now, there's actually a term for this: qualia. Qualia refers to the deeply personal way that we experience sensations like color, taste, and sound. The big philosophical question about qualia is whether we can truly share our unique experiences with someone else. Like, could you truly share seeing the color red with someone who's never seen it before? They fully understand it before seeing it themselves. This would be directly linked perception. According to Webster, perception is a belief or idea based on how things may seem to us. That right there is the key. Perception isn't about objective truth. It's about how we choose to interpret reality. As the saying goes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Now, what if I told you that the color blue isn't as objective as you think? Not because of color blindness or faulty vision, but because your experience of blue might not match someone else's. The word blue is just a label we all agreed on as a society. True, the light wavelength doesn't change at all. Our perspective does. It's on what we've been taught to see. What if I told you that the sky was green? In all your life, you had been taught it was green. And every single person around you followed it. You would accept that as the truth. But here's the thing, the sky won't have changed at all. Your perspective did. The truth didn't shift. Your perspective. Now you're probably saying, of course, the sky is blue. We've always known that. But how do you actually know? You see blue because your brain interprets those wavelengths as blue. But what if someone else's brain interprets those exact same wavelengths as green? What if from birth they were taught that that color was green? To them, that green would be just as undeniable as boring. Now, this isn't just about colors, it's about everything. We live in a society where perspectives are often framed as my truth versus your truth. But what if perspectives aren't opposing? What if they are rigid? What if they grow and change as we learn and adapt to reality? I had to answer these questions for myself during my first ever mock trial. I sat at the table, mentally preparing myself for the battle ahead. When it was my turn, I stood up, straightened my shoulders, and cleared my throat. I began speaking.
My voice was strong, my tone was confident. Most importantly, I felt in the zone. So when the feedback came, I was utterly surprised. Your performance was way too energetic. It's energetic. Wasn't passion supposed to be a good thing? Doesn't enthusiasm show commitment? I felt had I done something wrong. But as I looked down at the 9s and 10s on my score sheet, I realized something important. This wasn't about right or wrong. It was about respect. What one judge had seen as too energetic, others had seen as passion and as drive. I had assumed that there was one clear way to perform, but in reality, there wasn't. The judge's own feedback was based on their own interpretations, just like perception itself. That's when it hit. Perspectives aren't fixed. They're fluid, adaptable as we learn and experience life. My energy wasn't inherently good or bad, it was just one way of interpreting my performance. This idea extends far beyond just me and you. Throughout history, ideas about gender roles, intelligence, and society itself change. A woman in the 19th century with strong morals and ideals would have been considered unruly. But today, she would be seen as. The qualities themselves aren't what change our perspective on that day. Perspective isn't just about what we see either. It's about how we choose to act. Every single breakthrough in our history came from someone who was willing to look at a problem differently than most of them. The right brothers, they saw air resistance not as an obstacle, but as an advantage. Einstein questioned time itself. Every single major breakthrough we've had in our society came from someone who was willing to challenge the dominant perspective. So what does this all mean? If perspective is fluid and if truth is based on interpretation, how are we supposed to navigate this complex? It means not understanding that how we see things isn't necessarily how they are. It means not understanding that reality isn't just a single unmovable truth, but an evolving experience shaped by every single action we make. Perspective is power. It can bind us, or it can break us. It can keep us stuck in the past, or it can push us forward into the future. So here's my challenge to you. Next time you encounter a belief or idea you've always just accepted like that, question it. Turn it over. Look at it from a different angle. Because the truth isn't just what we see, it's about how we choose to see it. Maybe, just maybe, the world isn't as blue as you think it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, what a night. Wasn't that amazing? They did not just deliver speeches, these were sparks. Thank you. Thank you so much to our incredible speakers. Thank you for stepping it up, for doing the hard work of preparation, writing and rewriting these speeches, doing all the tedious edits, and showing up every Monday night, despite you maybe being tired, having homework, and sitting there for almost 2.5 hours a week. I really, really appreciate it. You didn't just deliver speeches tonight, you delivered pieces yourself. And I sincerely believe that you will remember this event and it will serve you well in the future. Thank you to all of our volunteers who came in early. They were cutting out badges, and to the tech crew that were fixing all the mics and everything else that made this event possible. To the rest of you, if this evening moved you, if the speeches meant something insightful to you, then I encourage you to stay in touch. We plan to have many more such gatherings. So thank you again for being here tonight. I do have one final moment, which will be a photo moment for all of you to take pictures of your children if you'd like, right next to the TED logo. So I will be inviting them here on stage again, where I will be giving them their recognition. They are going to receive a recognition from TED organization, which is a certificate with their name, acknowledging their participation here tonight. And I also have a special gift, which is a book titled Founder 1.0. And the reason why I decided to give that gift to my students is because TED stands for Technology and Entrepreneurship, and obviously ideas worth sharing. And I believe this is one book that still has role models where they can learn and they can read about real entrepreneurs that have started from nothing and they have built empires in the United States. And I believe that looking through their profiles, they'll gain inspiration and they will use these as real role models when they navigate their future entrepreneurship and technological careers in the future. So each one of them will get the founder book from me. I hope you enjoy it. It's very colorful and very insightful with the autobiographies of each founder and your wonderful names that sit right under the TED logo, which you can frame as a memorabilia of this event. So I'll be calling your name once you come in here. Parents, this is a photo moment for you. And I hope that you have your cams ready. Thank you very much again. Right, and particular order. Okay. And we'll actually start the ball first. Maybe I'll drop it. Simply and you know what, you see, just stay on stage, so your hands can take pictures. Arna, stop home. You are. Start to the room. Take the film. Fix the logo on you guys. You can just lift your head down now and just smile and she made and so you are. Hospital. Thank you. You can now breathe, let your head down. Take a look back there. And that's certainly How long does it take for you to prepare?
Her track fell down, so I was. No, this is.
Whose phone is this?
ഇത് ഞങ്ങളെ വിടോ ഇവിടെയാണ് കഴിക്കുന്നുണ്ട് എന്താ പരിപാടി പരിപാടി നല്ല കഴിക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്ന എവിടെയെങ്കിലും കേട്ടോ നിങ്ങളെവിടെയാ പോകാൻ തീരുമാനിച്ചു സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്തോ
Next year, actually, it's okay. February start പക്ഷേ I think I think from the next year. I mean, it's just like they just started.
നല്ല കുഷിയാണ് ശരി പ്രതീക്ഷ ഞങ്ങളുടെ 3 പേരുടെ ഇവിടെ ഫോട്ടോ എടുത്തേക്കാം അവിടെ പോയി നിൽക്കണോ അവിടെ അപ്പൊ അവിടെ ചെറിയ
You're not.
Sorry. Your phone. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure.